Hello, I'm Linda Kincaid. Welcome to Connect the World. We begin in Moscow, where talks between America and Russia's top diplomats have begun in quite an undiplomatic way. US Secretary of State Rex Tillerson is trying to persuade the Kremlin to abandon its Syrian ally. But with tensions strained over an American airstrike on a Syrian airbase last week, Moscow started the talks with a rather frank warning: don't do it again. But whatever the differences the two powers may have in their approach to Syria, Tillerson says he's keen to find common ground.
Our meetings today come at an important moment in the relationship so that we can further clarify areas of common objectives, areas of common interest, even when our tactical approaches may be different, and to further clarify areas of sharp difference so that we can better understand why these differences exist and what the prospects for narrowing those differences may be.
Well, the issue of Russia's support for Syria is dominating the United Nations Security Council meeting right now. These are live pictures of that meeting. In the past few moments, the UK's ambassador has said Moscow has chosen the wrong side of history. Well, let's get more on both of this meeting and what it means for Syria itself. Matthew Chance is in Moscow and Ben Wiedemann is on the Turkish-Syrian border. Let's go first to Matthew. The Secretary of State there is set to make a case, or at least trying to make a case, for Moscow to rethink its alliance with Assad. But after that initial 2-hour meeting, the US was left with no uncertain terms about where Moscow stands.
Well, I certainly expect that's been the message from the Russian foreign minister to his American counterpart, Rex Tillerson, in this, their first, at least Rex Tillerson's first official visit as Secretary of State to Moscow. He came here with a message that Russia should not back Assad, that Russia should rethink its national interests when it comes to the conflict in Syria and its backing for the Syrian government. But you know, there's not been any indication at all from the Kremlin, from the Russian Foreign Ministry, from the Defense Ministry, from anyone to suggest that that's in the offing. Indeed, Russia has spent billions of dollars. It's invested a lot of political capital, personal and national prestige on the behalf of Vladimir Putin as well, the Russian president, in propping up the government of Bashar al-Assad. And frankly, there's very little chance at all of that reversing in the near future. Russia sees Syria not just as an important military base, an important ally in the Middle East, but also as a message to the rest of the world that Russia is a powerful player on the international stage. And so the idea it's going to turn its back on that key strategic ally just because the United States wants it to at this point, and has demonstrated an ability and a willingness to strike at Syrian government targets inside the country, I think is pretty unrealistic. And I expect, although we don't know for sure, but I expect that's what the message of Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, is going to be to his American counterpart.
Matthew, Sergei Lavrov has been doing this job as foreign minister since 2004. Tillerson, pretty new at this job. He has been running an oil company for the last few years. Just explain for us your reading of the situation, how they're shaping up against each other, given that Lavrov appeared to take a swipe at the State Department.
Well, indeed. I mean, Sergei Lavrov has decades of experience in diplomacy, and Rex Tillerson has weeks of experience. And so there is obviously a big discrepancy between the two. At the same time, Rex Tillerson has been, a senior figure in US business. He was the CEO of Exxon, the huge oil company, and he's got a lot of experience with Russia as well. Indeed, in 2013, he was so close to the Russian leadership that Vladimir Putin personally awarded him the Order of Friendship, which is the highest sort of civilian foreigner honor that the Russian state can award someone. And so he's got a long-standing experience with dealing with Russians, and the hope is, or the expectation is, he'll be able to bring some of that experience to bear in his negotiations with Sergei Lavrov. But it seems there is a big discrepancy, not just in the experience of these two figures, but in what they want to achieve. There's huge distance between what the United States wants in Syria and what Russia is prepared to deliver in Syria, just like there's a whole host of differences on a range of other issues as well, Linda.
Huge differences. Matthew, just stand by for us. I want to ask Ben a little bit more about that. Donald Trump initially said that going after Assad wasn't his priority. We certainly have seen what looks to be a shift in policy from people within his team talking about that. The question is, without Russia's support, is a future without Assad possible?
Well, and that's a very hypothetical question without Russia's support. And I think Matthew very well laid out the reasons that it's highly unlikely that the Russians are going to withdraw their support, which goes back decades from the days of the Soviet Union. They're not about to pull out because the United States is telling them to. The United States is also indicating they would like Iranian influence to be eliminated from Syria and for Hezbollah to pull out of Syria. This is a long wish list that doesn't seem to be grounded in the reality of modern Syria, of contemporary Syria. So this is a regime that has it survived 6 years of civil war. It does have some popular support. It's important to differentiate that from, for instance, the situation with Mubarak in Egypt or Gaddafi in Libya. This is a regime that has held on, and it's not about to go. As long as it's got that Russian support, as long as it's got support from Iran and Hezbollah, and all of them have very good reasons to back up the regime in Damascus, it's not about to go. And even if theoretically it were to go, there's something that everybody has to keep in mind, which is the day after. The United States is very good at eliminating regimes in Iraq and Libya. What they haven't proven very good at is the day after. And certainly in Syria, the potential for a real bloodbath, a bloodbath along the lines of what we've seen over the last 6 years, if not worse, is there. And of course, if Bashar al-Assad, the regime of Bashar al-Assad, is eliminated, who could take their place? And of course, the most potent military force in Syria at the moment is ISIS.